Hello, I'm Max, Documentation Officer for this 2021 competition year. Every year, HPRC writes 4 major design reports for NASA. These typically 150-page plus reports mirror the actual technical reviews that NASA employees write when they're designing space systems. Ours are very similar to what you might expect to do when you do your MQP later on. Uh, while this can sound kind of intimidating, remember that you're not writing the whole thing yourself. With everyone on the team contributing, individual workload isn't too bad. And it's also worth noting that this first document, the proposal, tends to be significantly shorter than the other ones. Um, in any case, it's a great way to get used to the kind of technical writing you expect to do later on in your career without going in too far at once. Um, so here you can see the original HPRC proposal from back when the team first started competing back in 2018. Uh, the with this proposal, if you scroll all the way to the bottom, you can see it's 45 pages, significantly less than some of the other design reviews, and so with figures and other such stuff factored in, like the title page, that's like less than 1 page per person. But just to give you kind of a feel for what we're writing, um, a lot of detail about our designs and why we think that whatever we're doing is the best option, typically with figures and graphs to back things up. In any case, to perfect our reports, we have a specific process that all our writing goes through before it's added to the final document. And this is to ensure that everything is obviously grammatically correct, but also technically correct and represents the best work that we could put forward. So you can see on this diagram to the right a flowchart. Typically, this all starts with members getting some specific thing to write about, usually something about whatever subsystem you've been working on. And this all starts once you finish writing the section that you were assigned. Once you've written it, added all the added all the figures and whatnot, you then pass that off to your sub-team lead, who will then, review it once to make sure that it's, accurate about the subsystem and that it fits with the other work the sub-team has done. Um, if there's some problems, then that goes back to you to revise it. But if it's good, that gets passed on to the rocket lead, or I guess this says rocket lead. It might be payload lead if you're on the payload division. And they do another similar check before finishing up and passing on. Finally, once that's done, the documentation officer, that's me, does a final review before, if everything's all good, it gets put into the final document uh, where it's all set and it's part of the report officially. Now I'm going to show you how it actually gets done. First, to go to where the documents actually get written, you can see right here in File Explorer, I have the HPRC files directory open. To get to it, it's pretty simple. You just go to Documents right here, and you can see there's a folder for each of the 4 major design reviews. And so we're working on the proposal, so we're going to go there. And you can see there's 3 folders here. There's Submission, Reviewed, and Source. Submission is for all the finalized stuff. You guys shouldn't need to, edit anything in there. You probably won't have permissions to edit anything in there. But if you ever want to read what the final proposal was, you can check it out there. Next is the Reviewed section, which is for reviewed stuff that's pending being added to the final submission folder, to the final document. And finally, there's the source folder, which is where you as a member will actually be writing your stuff. And so you can see right now it's empty because no one else has written anything. But the basic process for this is once you know what you're writing, you will create a source document, basically just a Word file where you're going to type your content. So to go about creating the document, as you do normally, you just create new Word document and title it whatever the name of the section you're writing for is. So I'm just going to make a test section, and then we can open it. And you can see now we have a nice blank document. So in actually writing these documents, I'm sure most of you are pretty familiar with Word. The actual writing works just as it normally would, but there are a few key considerations to take when writing for a large document like this. Because we have so many different documents to be incorporating, there are some word features that we try to make use of that make everything come together a bit better, and also allow for neat things like automatic figure numbering and cross references and the like. And I'm going to go through and kind of explain how to do those. So this does kind of follow off a actual written guide that I'll show you how to get to. If we go back up to the Documents folder, there's a Themes and Guides folder within it that we can go into, and can look at the Design Review Guide. And this will pop up like this, and you can see this is written actually in the style of what the actual guide will look like. So once we're done, we'll have something like this. Instead of Design Review Guide, it will be Proposal. So you can see the format and this table of contents and whatnot, figures, etc. And everything I'm going to talk about here, you can read about in more depth in these sections. And they explain all the details. Like if you want specific types of tables, you can look at that here. But I'm going to go over each of the sections very briefly. So in any case, I'm going to move this off of the screen so we can focus on our window here. So the first thing that we're going to look at is the Styles bar, which you can see up here. Essentially, what this does is these are a preset way of managing the fonts and like format of your text in such a way that it's easily transferable between documents. Essentially what this means is you should never, under any circumstances, actually edit the font yourself. You should always leave it as is and not change it. Otherwise, that could mess with stuff later. So, in any case, to get to what we're doing, you'll be using typically just normal text and the headers. So, to start off, we're just going to create the title of our section, which is just going to be test section. And because it's the title, it's going to get header 1. And you can see it's been given the special header font, and we can type our test text. As you can see, I'm a very fast typer. And continuing on, let's say we have a subsection. What we do for that is simply use heading 2 and so on and so forth. You typically don't want to go, you want to avoid going too deep in the headings, but as long as you don't go beyond heading 4, you're probably fine. So we're going to make a test subsection. And this, we're going to type some more sample text. Okay, so it should be pretty easy to see how that works. In any case, moving on, one thing that's important for you to do, oftentimes you'll run into cases where you might not have some information yet, or you know some text needs to get changed later. And I know sometimes people would do things like leave brackets, insert this number here or something, but it's easy to miss that. And so the best way to go about doing that is to highlight the text that needs to get changed and right click and add a comment. You can also use Control Alt M. And you can see now this creates a comment here, and that lets reviewers know that there's something that needs to get resolved before submitting it. So continuing on, the next thing that I want to show you, and this is one of the big important things, is the References tab up here on the top. And this is where a lot of the fancy features that we're going to be using to automatically keep track of figure numbers and the like are going to be used. And important thing here is the Insert Caption button. You'll probably use that a lot as we go along. So to demonstrate this, I'm going to add a picture. There we go. A nice picture of Hudson. Scale it down a little bit. And I'm also going to center it. All your pictures, in general, you should center them. And you should keep them in line like that. And, a quick other thing before I forget this. You can reply to comments. So if someone else made a comment, you can comment on this to add your thoughts or provide more insight or give advice. But yeah, continue on. So now we have this photo. We go to References, and we can do Insert Caption. And type the name of the caption. And also real quick, this works the same for figures and equations and tables. You just need to select what you're labeling so it gets sorted appropriately. And you can see this is what the caption will look like. Hit OK, and it appears below. And you can see it's been given the name and number, so it's identifiable. And let's say we want to reference this somewhere else. So if we just want to reference this, we could type, figure 0.1, but if we had a figure before that, then all of a sudden now we need to go back and change what that text says. Word can do this automatically if we, instead of typing it manually, select the cross-reference button. And there's a number of things you can cross-reference, such as numbered item, which is all the section headers, but we want, scrolling down, figure. You can see there's one right here. You'll notice the insert reference to, you'll want to change that to only label and number. And we can insert that, and you see it's appeared there. So now, if we ever add another figure before that, it will get, that number will get changed, and it will always be correct. So there are some things that you may want to reference that aren't actually added in yet. For example, sections in other people's writing, or other sections that you don't know. You might know what information you're referencing, but not what section it is. For that, it is acceptable to leave a comment with what you want to reference. So, for example, let's say I want to reference the eBay section, but I'm not working on that. So I'll just write section pound, select it, and just create a comment and say reference the eBay. And this lets me know to just go in and add that cross-reference for you later once that section is actually written in. I'm going to very briefly cover how to do tables. You can, if you want more types of tables, you can read the guide I showed you earlier, which explains how to do some more formatting with them. But you should be able to just go to Insert, Table, and add the kind of table you want. And then you could add your content, your headers, and then you might want to make it a bit smaller so it's not too wide, whatnot. Usually you'll want to center it, which you can do by selecting that box, home, center, and then now we do the same thing we did with figure by going to caption and now making a table reference, and just saying sample table. You see occasionally sometimes the caption might not get centered properly, in which case just center it yourself. Now later on, for some of the other documents, we'll probably get into more of the formatting so you can make it look a bit nicer by yourself. But for now, it's best that you just leave things simple like this with no formatting and whatnot. But later on, there'll be a bit more of that on your guys' end. Finally, the last thing mentioned in the guide is equations. Because most of you probably won't need to write any fancy equations in your content, I'm not going to cover those here, just to keep the video a little bit shorter. But you can read all about those in the guide. Word has a similar to LaTeX, my bad, equation editor, which can actually be quite powerful. But yeah. In any case, now this isn't a step that you'll be doing yourself, but I'm going to show you why this is done that way. So, to give an example, I'm going to move this off to the side, and we're going to bring in the guide. And so if you recall from several minutes ago, this is formatted just like the actual document. So you can see this is a header 1, which this header 1, obviously looks different from this one. But if we scroll down to the bottom and I copy paste everything, you'll notice all the formatting was changed to update to the final document. And if we highlight everything and refresh it, if you press F9, it refreshes those fields. You can see our figure number auto updated because there's other figures before it. So now this is figure 5.1, and we didn't have to change anything. We just copy pasted it over and refreshed it. It even copied our comments and whatnot. And last thing for the table, this is something you guys might need to do later, but you don't need to worry about it for now. If we go over to design, we can apply a specific design to it, and you can see that automatically set the colors. In any case, that concludes this guide about how to do the documentation. If you have any questions, feel free to ask me or your sub-team head, depending on the context. Yeah, in any case, have a great day.